All right, we're literally in the middle of the FanFest keynote right now. It's kind of closing up, but they just literally released the trailer. Let's crack into it. The trailer's fire.
Blue seas, clear skies, and boundless possibilities. I dare say our destination will soon be in sight.
Enjoying yourself for a change?
I already saw this trailer. Why do I have chills? This man and his taco, bro.
Might you have a moment to speak further?
Bro, he's drinking out of a pineapple. I didn't even realize it last time.
At last, we are come to the land you call the New World. My home. Hurrah!
All right, so we gotta dissect this entire Dawntrail trailer, right? So here's the thing that has to be put into perspective for this, right? So in the keynote, they basically said that the introduction for Dawntrail is now that I'm saying it in my head now, it sounds so much more fire than I initially heard it, because I was kind of like shocked when I heard it, but either way. So like they literally described the expansion as an initial preparation for like a post summer vacation, despite everything that's going on. Like the theme is summer vacation. Like that's what they said, right? So that's the reason why you're on a boat. We're traveling over to the southwestern, part of the world, and we're gonna be going to go do the whole vibes. Right? All this is really really cool. Now the thing is that he's already sitting on top of in the front of the ship, like cocky and excited, right? He's not really like arrogant and like annoying, but like he like the Warrior of Light he's literally prepared to go on the island. Like that's what's happening right now, right? So I think that's really cool. I like that he doesn't really just appear out of nowhere. He's like ready to like go on this adventure, which I think is so fire. The other thing that I like is that they actually took a lot of perspectives of characters we've already seen in the previous expansions, and they're keeping them inside the loop of the story. It's really hard for them to do that. It was difficult for them to do that with Shadowbringers, because like a whole nother shard, right? But now that everything kind of is conglomerated right now in like Eorzea, and like for the majority of the shard that they're currently on, like for Erenville to come along with us as a gleaner to like expand in the universe and everything for the game, it makes total sense, and it fits really well also. So I love that. Then we move over to like, this part of the area where this is the area of the new expansion, right? It's very village and jungle and like adventurer-esque, which makes total sense, because like the whole purpose of this trailer and expansion is that it's a new saga, right? It's like 1.0 all over again in terms of story, content, etc., whatever have you. Only thing that might be different, obviously, is that like it's a full continuation of the previous expansions, right? So the characters and the story that's been developed is all there, but we're getting new stuff, and that's really cool. It kind of reminds me of Monster Hunter, like low-key, which I like that, right? Now, here's the first segment where people. So in the keynote, they mentioned that the purpose of the trail of the expansion is that the new worlds that we're going to is basically trying to decide on a new ruler to take over the world. Or rather the new world, the content that they're going to be going to. Like us as Warriors of Light, like we're going to be involved in helping decide who gets to take over the new world as it is established, which kind of like rings a couple of questionable bells, because it's like, why are we involved, right? But that'll obviously be further deciphered as we kind of dive deeper through the expansion as a whole, which is sick. However, spoilers, it's been confirmed this guy is the current ruler of the new world. Current. So someone else in a theoretical idea is going to be taking over this guy, should he not be best fit to rule the throne. That's the idea. So for him to be fighting us is a very clear indication that we don't really want him to be the leader, or we're putting him to the test. So there's that. Now here's the other thing. We are currently using a single sword. However, there's no shield, which means that we're not paladin anymore, obviously. Now, it's kind of hard to figure out what the job entails. I think during the keynote, I ideally thought, because the weapon is thin, so it reminded me of Red Mage. So I was gonna say that it could have been Red Mage, but now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think that this is the case. I think this is actually the new job, and it's been confirmed that it's 2 DPS. We're getting a melee and we're getting a caster. This is guaranteed to be the scouting class if it's not Red Mage, because the coat that the but at the same time, though, you have to go back to the part where he's here. This gear that's being worn is very pirate-esque. You can even see it in the collar of the shirt as well. The collared shirt doesn't really say Red Mage to me. It says Scouts. But the weapon that he has versus this thing is too long to be a ninja weapon, and he's holding it with the sword forward. So this has to be the new Scout class. It has to be, because the other problem, though, is that the coat doesn't really get to really showcase what the person is wearing, right? So it's hard to really figure out like what's under the coat, because on the backside, it could be a shield, and all of a sudden, right, paladin, but that wouldn't make sense. What I think is the sword, right? So here's the thing. Right now, the sword is being held in his right hand. Now, you might think like, oh, like if it's a scout job, that means that the left hand has to have a sword filled in it somewhere, right? However, if it's on his left side, it would make sense. That means that the sword is on his right side and it's being covered. So he has the sword in his right hand, and the second sword is on his right hip also. So in any event that he would bring out two swords, then he has basically one of those scenarios. So that's what they're doing with this. Now, I don't really know in what moment that they actually don't showcase it to you, but they clearly put him under the flame with this, because the coat will burn off and it will reveal the second weapon. Now, here's the thing. It might not even be a second sword. It could even be a gun. People think that the second weapon that he has isn't actually a sword. People think that he's going to be able to, because it's a dual wielding class guaranteed. So if he's dual wielding a sword with, say, like a pistol of some sort, then now the job that we're thinking of may not even make sense anymore. I can't tell you what job it's related to, because there's not that many dual wielded like jobs in the game as a whole. But if I was thinking it to be like, I can't really give you a name of a job, because you would think like Rune Fencer, but it's not Rune Fencer. It's a job that uses two swords, but like, again, like what job in Final Fantasy lore has two swords, right? There's not really that many. There's only a couple operations. Fang is a good example from 13. However, her weapon's a spear, and she's technically a dragoon, but her weapon breaks into two. I'm trying to like quickly cycle through all the characters that I know that utilize double-handed weapons. You have technically Zidane, who does use two-handed swords. However, he wields them behind, similar to how Ninja does, so he can't be. Also, his job is technically a thief. So unless this job is a thief, then there's no chance of it, right? You also have in technical case you have Shadow from FF6, but technically he's a ninja, so that also doesn't count, right? Um, so it's kind of hard to figure out exactly which job he might be going off of in terms of the actual implication, but for sure he has a second weapon hidden underneath the coat. What the weapon is unclear, and they did a very good job of hiding it. It could be a short sword. My personal thing is that whatever the job is called, I think it's a unique job to Final Fantasy lore in general, but it does use two swords. Objectively, it's going to be two swords that when they do normal damage and normal attacks with them splits, but there's a stance of some sort where he puts the swords together and then it becomes kind of like a dual-edged sword, like a double-edged sword kind of thing. It's going to be something like that, I think. And if they don't do it with the double sword thing, it's going to be a sword and like a small gun. And then that way he kind of acts like a tactical, right, like a tactical class that, like a shotgun or something like that. Like it might be, but if it follows like a pirated theme or like a summer camp based theme or something of that nature, it should be something that like fits that kind of criteria. So we'll see. Now obviously they're here having fun and partying and doing all that they got to do, but they're obviously not doing this outside of just for sake of having fun, right? They're doing reconnaissance because Yashtola's obviously researching this. Alize and Graha are trying to have fun, right? And again, spoilers, but in the keynote, they did mention that the Scions would be splitting in terms of who they think is best fit to rule. That doesn't say that the Scions are going to be no longer a thing, but what it does say is that people are going to have divided opinions about who should be ruling the new world. Now, obviously, who picks which side is kind of hard to guess, but I would wager that you can I like to be confident and say that Grahatia and Alize will be together. There's no for sure certainty that Alphino will be on the same side as them, but I think that it'll be at least Graha and Alize versus Y'shtola and Alphino. I do think so. Now, Thancred versus Urianger is kind of up in the air. It's kind of hard to decipher. Because again, and then Estinian, we have no idea, right? I really couldn't tell you which one. However, I think Estinian would pick Alphino's side just because he's been so well developed by him as a character as a whole. So now you have it being like a 2v3 scenario, right? But all of a sudden now, right, you got Thancred, who's again doing reconnaissance and doing his research. And there's a possible chance that he can be on either side. And same thing for Urianger. But obviously they work together very frequently too. So chances are, right, it might be they might be on Alize and Grahatia's side. But I mean, a lot of it's really hard to speculate. So I personally have no idea. I think we as the Warrior of Light will be on the side that wants the new ruler to take over because we don't like the current ruler. I think that's what the thing is going to be. I think in terms of like Alize's side, I think they also will support the current ruler, and then Alphino's side will want the new ruler if it's going to go in that direction. Just throwing it out there. Now, the last thing to keep in mind with this, I think, is actually one of the biggest details, is that as a character as a whole, every single expansion since 1.0, we've never changed our hairstyle. But in this time, our hairstyle is completely different. And it kind of reminds me of Zack Fair from FF7 like a little bit. So like that doesn't really have any indication as to what job he might be indicative of, but you can see here that his outfit literally showcases that he's not really playing like a casting class. He's playing like a scouting class. And his hand here was on his knee, but I think it was also holding whatever is either on whatever side of whatever his weapons are kind of thing too. So like, again, it's really hard to figure it out. So for now, this is the information that we have. This is just a teaser trailer. This is the first one. There's going to be 3 in total. The second trailer will give us further implication on the scouting job, and it'll also tell us a little bit more about the villain and also what kind of narrative is going to be told about the lore for the whole game as it is. We are definitely going to be getting more information come October with the London Fan Fest, to be sure. The trailer will definitely extend from 2 to maybe like 5-ish minutes, depending on what it is. And then we have the Japan one, and that's going to be the final everything. and then we'll see that come out in January, maybe February of 2024. So we do have a lot of time on our hands between now and then to get more information. So there's a lot of things to cover, a lot of theories being held. Once again, here you have the final logo for the game expansion. It looks really good, and they also translated it in Japanese. I think the Japanese translation appears on the bottom right. They literally said that it was like the Legacy of Gold or the Gilded Legacy. So you know now that there's going to be a historical thing being put into perspective for what's happening with the new world. So there's a lot of questions to be had. I'm excited. I can't wait to figure out more about what's to come. We'll see for sure. So there's a trailer. Yeah.